You want to talk about TNA? I got your total nonstop action right here, baby.
Hey, welcome to WrestleReward, the show that looks at whether the wrestle was worth the reward. Clever, right? I'm Justin, and today's episode covers the first ever NWA-TNA pay-per-view from June 19th, 2002 at the Braun Center in Huntsville, Alabama. Throughout the episode, I'll be handing out some very special awards for the best and worst of the night, like the Brockberg, the Sign of the Times, the Golden Turtleneck, the Pyro Ballyhoo, the Tan Mysterio, the Art Donovan, and the Road Warrior Pop, so let's start the show. The show begins with, "Oh my god, the roof's exploding, the floor too, what's hold the fort. It was just the pyro. Speaking of which, the winner for this episode's Pyro and Ballyhoo Award for Coolest Pyro of the Night goes to the treasure that is Don West being the first person introduced at TNA TV with his own pyro.
Mr. Don West! Thank you! Are you ready to have a good time?
Unfortunately, the next man out was former WCW Cruiserweight Champion Ed Ferrara, the man formerly known as Oklahoma, now looking like the owner of Huntsville, Alabama's 12th largest strip club. And don't worry, if you were also a very clever boy and made the connection to what TNA could stand for when you saw the name of the company, Ed wasted no time in wink-wink nudge-nudging alongside you.
And I'm not necessarily talking about total nonstop action. I'm talking about TNA!
Ew. From Don's Hawaiian shirt and whatever it is that Ed was doing over there, we're welcomed to ringside by the familiar and comforting tones of a tuxedoed Mike TNA, just slightly overdressed for the occasion. TNA says that tonight is about honoring history and tradition in wrestling, which is interesting since the intro to the show 90 seconds ago was literally TNA blowing up old-timey traditional wrestling. Running away with this episode's Sign of the Times award is a poster board that is quite literally a sign of the times for TNA's rookie year, the first of what would be a deluge of Athena signs for the ring attendant and future X Division title challenger. Hopefully, all these fans were happy to hear that Athena finally got signed, even if it wasn't by TNA. A double-collared Jeremy Borash welcomes a parade of legends to the ring as TNA stalls the show to repair the ring following the man, the myth, the legend, Cheeks.
This is Cheeks!
Breaking the ring prior to the broadcast in a dark match that almost caused the entire show to go dark. Out come dignitaries such as Harley Race, Dory Funk Jr., future TNA Tag Team title #1 contender Bullet Bob Armstrong, the husband and wife team of Corsica Joe and Tennessee legend / TNA ticket lady Sarah Lee, plus Jackie Fargo, which prompts an argument about the Wrestling Observer newsletter between TNA and Ferrara.
How about this? He was a first ballot Wrestling Observer Hall of Famer, Ed Ferrara. Wrestling Observer? What's that? Wrestling Observer. It's a very famous newsletter in this business. I'm hearing you, but it's all pops and buzzes. I have no idea what you're...
Ricky Steamboat the Dragon enters with the vacant NWA World's title. Sorry, Dan Severn, that he'll present to the winner of tonight's 20-man Gauntlet for the gold as referee. And also, Bill Behrens is here and he randomly follows me on Twitter, so shout out to my guy. Not so fast though, Jurassic Slapnuts. Jeff Jarrett's here dressed as the year 2002, declaring that a world title being decided in a 20-man match is crap, and he wants no more BS. Jackie Fargo issues some Memphis on Memphis crime by announcing Jarrett will now be forced to enter the Gauntlet at #1, starting his stuff as TNA's first official authority figure. Please keep your scorecards very handy. Oh yeah, Ken Shamrock's here and he has 2 different Shamrocks on his shirt in case he forgets his name, and he's here to shut up the whining about tonight's main event.
You're right about how this NWA title match is played out. It sucks.
Okay, Shamrock hates it too, but all's well again because this episode's winner of the Golden Turtleneck for Best Fit of the Night arrives through the crowd like a true outsider as Scott Hall kicks off TNA's existence with a Michigan Strip Club t-shirt. Fresh off a turbulent second run in the WWF, Scott Hall's just happy to have a second chance and he's not going to put up with these selfish wrestlers acting entitled over tonight's historic World's title match.
I agree with you about this battle royal for the belt. It sucks.
With the table now set for TNA's first main event, we move to TNA's first official match showcasing the X Division with the trio of AJ Styles, Low-Key, and Jerry Lynn, who we know are the good guys because the legends are smiling and pointing, facing the Flying Elvises of Jimmy Yang, Sonny Siaki, and Jorge Estrada, who we know are the bad guys because the legends are incredulous and pointing. And if there's one thing old territory wrestling would never stand for, it's cartoony characters with over-the-top gimmicks.
This is the Christmas Preacher. He is huge.
Well, I don't know about the Gilberts, but I know about Cowabunga, and I know the way I deal with things. I'm not going to sit back and watch it, my friend.
Now I come in search of new gladiators to test me, Tagar, Lord of the Volcano.
Here's Freddie, though. And the Dragon Master.
This is the Dragon Master, honey. Come on out.
I don't know. Just leave him in there. If you don't.
No.
It wasn't Jimmy Yang's first outlandish trio nor his first featuring impersonators, as he was part of the Young Dragons in WCW alongside Kaz Hayashi and a very white Jamie by God Nobleson. And come to think of it, the Dragons winning that record contract in the ladder match against 3 Count could have really come in handy for Yang starting the Flying Elvises. As fate would have it, the opening match on the final WCW Thunder in March 2001 was Yang and Hayashi against AJ Styles and Air Paris, meaning TNA was both figuratively and literally picking up where WCW left off. ROH's Low-Key and Styles forget this is a different new promotion and extend an offer for the Code of Honor, but they're instead jumped by the Elvis Triad, who quickly get it turned back on them with dropkicks, ranas, tope suicidas, and a top rope plunge. It's at floor level where we see the www.NWA-TNA.com ad on the ring skirt for the first time this show, since it's not actually visible on the hard cam despite that being the only reason to put it on that side. Back in the ring, it's Yang telling AJ to get ready to fly before sending AJ's head flying off with a brutal running knee strike. AJ does slow the onslaught by countering the back suplex to roll on his back for a tag to the former ECW World Champion and his fellow jacked compatriot, Jerry Lynn. He fares no better though as Yang kips up out of the tornado DDT to Lingerie Lynn down as Low-Key's tiny man body fails to tag himself in when Jerry sent into the Elvis district of Huntsville in the corner. Yang then skywalks on Lynn's chest and rams his shoulder into the midsection as a blind tag brings in Sonny Siaki, who actually first met his fellow Flying Elvis Jorge Estrada in a Raw Dark match almost 1 year earlier. Jerry Lynn finally finds some offense out of Siaki's wheelbarrow and tags in Low-Key, who gives it right back away by suffering a spinning nightbreaker from Siaki. Better than the straps coming down in Memphis, it's the Elvis jumpsuit coming down in Huntsville as Siaki smells blood in the water, capitalizing with a backbreaker over his shoulder that Low-Key's able to get his shoulder up on the cover for. The Samoan Siaki drops Low-Key ahead of Estrada, springing into the match with a springboard sit-up Blue Moon, salt, and a curl lip that you can see all the way from the nosebleeds. Good job. Estrada flips onto Key from the opposite direction, but after another 2 count, suffers a low-key kick that chops him down to size for a high-key lethal low-key high kick to the head. Both men reach their respective corners to tag in the fresh men, returning us to Styles vs. Yang, where this time it's AJ turning Yang inside out and connecting on the first of many springboard reverse DDTs in TNA, but number 1 is only good for 2. Yang lands on his feet out of a German suplex and rocks AJ once more with a spinning leg lariat that would have ended the match without Low-Key's crash into the cover. It all breaks down with Lynn for a cradle piledriver on Estrada before suffering a Siaklip now that's met with an Enziguri by Styles ahead of finally slowing down Yang by catching him mid-move. AJ brings Yang to the corner for Low-Key to detonate with a cartwheel kick, but instead severs it himself. Miscommunication! Estrada missile dropkicks Key from behind into almost tearing referee Slick Johnson's ACL while Yang goes up top for a move that looks how Elvis's insides felt that fateful day in the toilet to earn Yang the victory over AJ's team, which is also how their Thunder match ended. Yang and Styles were out of a job after their last tag team match, but luckily this time they'll walk away with the Brockberg for best match of the night for exactly the match you want to start off your company, show, and exciting new X Division off with. TNA probably wishes they put AJ over considering the Mr. TNA status he'd go on to claim, including the first ever X Division title in the main event a week later, but Jimmy Yang rules, so I'm not mad at it. The future two-stepping cowboy celebrates with a dance that's matched by TNA's cage dancers in our first introduction to them, but just don't tell AJ and his Jesus about them.
Don't you ever vote my Jesus.
The NWA-TNA's next specialty division introduces us to the man they call Tio, who's going one-on-one with an already-in-the-ring wrestler named Hollywood. Not to be confused, of course, with Holly Wood, who would represent Sports Entertainment Extreme in 2003 by taking the T in TNA very literally. Tio was fresh off a series of matches with Puppet the Psycho Dwarf and World Wrestling All-Stars that I watched in the research for this video and found to be pretty solid besides the constant jokes from Mark Madden and Disco Inferno on commentary, and wouldn't even went as far as Tio getting slammed into thumbtacks. Curiously though, despite Tio only wrestling Puppet in the WWA, a promotion that was essentially the rough draft for TNA, and Puppet being on this very show, the two weren't wrestling and would never do so in TNA. Hopefully Tio and Hollywood can at least make Puppet's dreams come true.
Tio and Hollywood? All I want to say is, I want to see some midget blood.
The match begins with Hollywood yanking Tio off the middle rope and attempting a clothesline, but instead getting wrapped up in a messy attempt at a tilt-a-whirl sidewalk slam. Tio's hockey instincts kick in and he uses Hollywood's tank top to blind him as he delivers chops ahead of a springboard elbow drop that lands much more accurately than the side slam. Tio moves corners to unleash punches to the head and then some thrusts directly to the face before one last pop for good measure. Tio gets caught on this attempt to leverage off the ropes and dropped with a sit-out power slam in the middle, but is still fresh enough to get the shoulder up. Tio tries to sneak a roll-up as Hollywood argues with referee Scott Armstrong and collects it to himself, but pays for it by then catching a clothesline that plants him long enough for Hollywood to land a frog splash, and even though I clipped this match after already watching it once, I was still shocked to see Tio kick out from this. After some jockeying in the corner, Tio hits a Russian leg sweep and goes up top himself for a crossbody elbow drop that I think was meant to be a senton, that along with the deep hook of the leg secures TEO the 1-2-3, even if he doesn't quite know where the hard cam is yet.
How's it going, everybody? Brian Alvarez, Dave Meltzer here on Wrestling Observer Radio.
If you were worried that cutting to the cage dancing women after every segment wasn't enough TNA on this TNA show, you're in luck because it's time to meet the 9 women who will compete for the literal crown of Miss TNA next week in a lingerie battle royal. First out is the Queen of Extreme herself, the ECW legend Francine, who is either the #1 or #2 most recognizable woman in the field next to her fellow royal, the Scream Queen and former WCW Cruiserweight Champion Daphne, who has fans in the arena with signs for a very cute moment. The next woman introduced is Miss Joni, someone who looks straight out of a 1990s direct-to-VHS erotic thriller about a husband cheating on his wife with a neighbor, played by Miss Joni. She did stick around in TNA for a spell, completing the Elvis ensemble of Jorge Estrada by becoming his Priscilla. The camera pans to the wrong entryway as we see a woman whose only recorded match is the next week's Battle Royal named Miss Sasha, standing in the shadows like a non-playable character as we're actually introduced to the future Mickie James, Alexis Lurie.
Talented wrestlers on the indie circuit, Alexis Lurie! One of the former stars!
Remember how Stacy Keibler started out as a Baltimore Ravens cheerleader and went on to become a sex symbol in pro wrestling? TNA does because a random Baltimore Ravens cheerleader who vaguely resembles Stacy named Erin arrives next, and once again, the Battle Royal would be the only documented match of her career. In a shocking twist, the next woman out is someone who is actually in the business. It's Elektra from ECW, who comes in with experience both facing Francine and wearing her underwear in the ring. The former paramedic turned WWF Women's Championship challenger turned wife of Kwee for 1 week before getting recast, BB Barbara Bush arrives under the name Taylor Vaughn. And bringing up the rear, get it like a butt, is a woman that we're told is making her wrestling debut and who seems to be actively regretting that choice right now, Teresa Tyler. I'll give you one guess of how many matches she had after the Battle Royal. To make a medium-length story short, Francine says she's the only one here deserving of being Miss TNA, but Elektra makes the patently absurd claim that Francine's manager's salary is what single-handedly bankrupted ECW. To save Elektra from making any more dumb comments, Francine jumps her and rips at her shirt, embarrassing Elektra into covering up with Ed Ferrara's jacket by way of the gentleman Don West. Francine reiterates that next week she'll become Miss TNA, and my thoughts on this segment match the 2 letters behind Francine. Next up is TNA's first 2-on-2 tag team match featuring James Storm and the marvelly attired Psicosis, 2 men who had never been in the same match before, let alone on the same team, squaring off with...
They are Richard and Rod, the Johnsons!
No, your eyes don't deceive you, even if you wish they were. It's Richard and Rod Johnson, accompanied by the Ivy League-educated Mortimer Plumtree as a pair of wrestling penises. If you've ever seen the intro for the Tan Mysterio Award that honors the worst outfit on a given show, then you already knew the Johnsons were locked in to win on this night, morning, mid-afternoon, or whenever you might be watching. Described by Plumtree as his school-era tormentors, he now uses his wealth to control. Apparently with an iron-gripped fist, the Johnsons would eventually go on to be known as the Gemini in WWE, a team led by Simon Dean to have their action figure pack warm the pegs, not that kind, at stores for years, as well as being mocked by their employer after a brief run on SmackDown. The Johnsons, of course, not to be confused with the Dicks, another tag team from that same era of SmackDown that had a similar level of success. Being in WWE wasn't the end of their impact on TNA though, with one half of the team, Mike Shane, owning the trademark to his name that was enforced by WWE, cock-blocking TNA's former X-Division champion Michael Shane into having to change his name. First to simply Michael, and then eventually to Matt Bentley with Tracy Brooks. As the Shane twins, they also held the NWA World Tag Team Championship when TNA assumed control of the 2 main NWA titles and vacated them to start fresh. Jeez, these guys really got the shaft. The most offensive aspect of the Johnsons' gimmick, even more than the fact there were literal children in the front row watching grown men pretend to be penises, was the fact these guys already look like penises. Why did they need the bodysuits? They look more like penises than 2009 Randy Orton, and that's saying something. James Storm stands high atop the turnbuckles to shoot off blanks with his guns Billy and Bart style, but the Johnsons hope to avoid shooting blanks in this match that tips off with a tie-up and a hand to the face. But careful, Johnson, if you keep using your hand like that, you'll put an eye out. Johnson travels across corners to double underhook suplex Psicosis out, but his cover is premature with a kick out at 2. Psicosis ducks an appendage to dish out a spinning heel kick to one Johnson and an enziguri to the other, who runs in to also get a James Storm foot job from the missile dropkick. Wrestling penises aren't enough to keep your attention, so we suddenly get to observe the former Ryan Shamrock and Symphony, Alicia Webb, observing the wrestling match. Or so we think. Johnson gets up in James Storm's guts with the knee to the midsection, but Storm returns fire by escaping the wheelbarrow to land a bulldog. Symphony Shamrock gets waved off for the next clue in our mystery by referee Mark Slick Johnson, which is just his normal name and not a joke about this match. The roles get reversed when it's the penises making Psicosis splat with a double flapjack, and then a single overhead suplex that sends Psy spinning. The anticipation in the crowd over the next Alicia Webb development is palpable as we return to the ring where Psicosis facebusters Johnson into his own. Psicosis makes the tag to James Storm, who double knuckles the Johnsons in their most sensitive spot, the head. Storm rides one Johnson down with a Hurricane Rana, but the Johnsons pump themselves back up by thudding Storm and Psicosis into each other to set up a pair of genuinely really impressive suplexes. Storm tries to get back into things but has his foot grabbed by Plumtree, turning his back to the match for a chance at revenge that only spells his downfall, with the letters TKO translating to a count of 3 for the first tag team of TNA, Richard and Rod, the Johnsons.
Don't make it sound like a fucking fat, plumpy, delicious cock.
Oh, by the way, it was a sex worker gimmick during the penis wrestling match. So, okay. The NWA Variety Hour rages on with the introduction of 2 NASCAR stars. NASCARs, the 2-time Daytona 500 winner Sterling Martin and 1993 NASCAR Busch Series Rookie of the Year Hermie Sadler. This doesn't do anything for me despite being from Oklahoma, but the crowd does cheer for them and even has signs, so especially when you're a new company trying to attract people in Alabama, I can't blame TNA for inviting NASCAR drivers at a time when the sport was setting records for its TV ratings. I won't pretend to care about the interview they did, especially since it was just a setup. K-Krush, formerly known as K-Quick in the WWF, interrupting with 2 very good points.
I'm sick and tired of hearing about some damn race car driving.
Thank you, K-Krush.
This is professional wrestling. My kind are athletes. Your kind drive a car around a circle in a left motion continuously.
K-Truth veers down a questionable path referring to his kind in comparison to the white meat white baby faces from NASCAR who make things even questionabler, with Hermie Sadler saying he can't take seriously an athlete who looks like K-Krush. And just for reference, here's what Hermie Sadler sounds like as he says he can't take somebody else seriously.
Apparently you don't know just who we are.
K-Krush ruffles Hermie's best Wednesday polo looking to throw down, but that's when Brian Christopher, formerly known as Grandmaster Sexay in the WWF, emerges to throw Crush up for an atomic drop super kick combo. That leads to the NASCAR guys throwing Crush out of the ring before Grandmaster adds one last cringe by challenging Crush to a My Kind versus Your Kind match for next week, but luckily K-Krush ends the segment on a high note by complaining to security about his injured buttocks.
K-Krush has accepted.
With all the heavyweights in the main event, we go back to our 3rd tag team match of the night, this time with the familiar duo of Christian York and Joey Matthews versus the Dupps family consisting of Bo Dupp, Stand Up, and their girlfriend cousin, Fluffed Up. Are you laughing yet? Yes, we've moved on from AAPI Elvis impersonators and wrestling genitalia to now a trio of incestuous rednecks, led by the man futurely known as Trevor Murdoch, who would soon stand up for WWE. As for York and Matthews, we don't know which family members they might have been sleeping with, but we do know they were featured in the dying days of ECW and went on to hold the NWA World Tag Team Championship in a pre-TNA world. That ECW run came right after York and Matthews collided with the Dupps family for the first time in the WWF for a May 2000 dark match, won by the team of Bo and former member Jack Dupp. This incarnation of the Dupps had just lost a Loser Leaves ECW match after 5 months in the Land of Extreme to prepare for approximately 18,000 untelevised matches against the Mean Street Posse. The match begins with the Dupps jumping Team Yam from behind and hitting a double team flapjack to Matthews, which felt a bit lazy since we had just seen that spot in the last match on this show. Joey ducks a double clothesline for York to spring into action with a double Dupp dropkick, but that doesn't stop Stand Up from full Nelson slamming Joey back down. Bo Dupp blasts Mr. Matthews with a surprisingly big boot to the face, but he's not as quick thinking on his feet when York sunset flips over and evades a sit-down splash. Christian York follows up with a senton splash and goes for a cover, but only scores 2 before Trevor Dupp breaks it up. Matthews runs in to run Stand over the top rope with a crossbody as the pace continues ramping up with the Tornado DDT on Bo. Perhaps missing the national spotlight, York decides now's the time to pose for the hard cam and the crowd in Huntsville, hot dogging that gets him brought back down to earth nuts first by Fluffed Up. That leads to the finish of this match that also mirrors how the last match on this show ended, down to the interference being in the same corner. The Johnsons, however, didn't pick their nose after winning, so credit to Bo Dupp there. Stand Up walks away ready to ride this success all the way to the NWA World's title, even if it wouldn't be under the red and gold TNA banner. Christian York, meanwhile, had so much left to learn that it took a decade and a gut-check tryout just for him to officially become a member of the TNA roster. It's time to crown a new NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, which can mean only one thing. Country music star Toby Keith performing 9/11 America music.
We'll put a boot in your ass and sing American way. Hey, Uncle Sam, put your name at the top of his list.
Jeff Jarrett breaks up the impromptu CMT Award show, entering the Gauntlet at number 1 and drawing the ire of not Garth Brooks in the process. The TNA Gauntlet begins where WCW Thunder ended, with Buff Bagwell, Lash LaRue, and Norman Smiley entering at 2, 3, and 4 respectively, and all being thrown out by Stroke Daddy Jones first, second, and third without so much as even a big wiggle. Entering at number 5 is a newcomer to the national scene named Apollo, spelled with only one L and hoping to avoid adding another L in this gauntlet for the gold. Apollo comes to us from the IWA in Puerto Rico, where he once actually resembled a normal human being and was also a multiple-time world and tag team champion. Unrelated to anything, but this clip of the future Judas Messias turning on him was in the video I got that first clip from, and how awesome does this angle look with all the blood spilling? Anyways, back to the gauntlet where Apollo plants Jeff with a cool sky-high spinebuster, foreshadowing his future NWA Tag Team title alliance. Apollo collects Jeff into a military press ready to end his world title dreams early, but either Apollo went to the spot too soon or K-Krush was too late, and as a result, Jeff just dropped out of the hold after an awkwardly long wait. Krush lives up to his name with an axe kick to Apollo as our first alliance of this match is formed between Double J and Double K. Like a couple not ready to admit their once raging inferno of passion is withered down into nothing more than two sticks frantically being rubbed together, J and K add a third in the form of the man formerly known as the sinister minister James Mitchell's newest charge Slash, who I was shocked to find out years ago was the man formerly known as Wolfie D from PG-13 in the Nation of Domination. He doesn't get off to the hottest start though, getting thrashed by Apollo until holla! If you hear me! It's Del Rios, the man formerly known as Spellbinder, of course from Memphis, and in a shocking twist, also the man formerly known as Fantasio from his infamous one-off in the WWF. No idea how he got to fake Steiner from all that, and his old Memphis buddies Jeff and Slash don't seem to appreciate it either, trapping him in the corner with the Tony Atlas special, though Del does soon land a trademark infringing Steiner suplex. Number 8 in the gauntlet isn't just the love child of Josh Peck and 90s Big Show, it's the man they call Justice, forcing the cursed image of an unmasked singlet-clad abyss into your brain. Justice hits a modified black hole slam on Del Rios upon entering, and before you know it we have another entry, this time Conan, who needs no introduction. K-Dog makes sure to introduce himself to the field though, decking multiple men with rolling clotheslines and tipping the scales of justice to his favor with a facebuster. The next man out is the quintessential stud muffin himself, straight from ECW. Joel, I kissed your mother goodnight and was out of sight before the light. I tell you I don't bite, but just ask your sister who is oh so tight, Gertner. It wasn't Joel entering the match, but rather Bruce from the Rainbow Express, accompanied by the former Cruiserweight champion Lenny Lane and supposedly subbing, no pun intended, for the injured Lodi, though contrary to commentary's claims, Lodi would never join TNA and Bruce remained throughout 2002. The man formerly known as Alan Funk and Kiwi in WCW is now a gay man who loves having gay sex with gay men because gay men are gay for men, in case you didn't understand the gimmick yet.
They're gay.
Considering though that Bruce's WWA gimmick was randomly impersonating Hulk Hogan.
And as the Funkster walks out to the arena tonight, brother, what you gonna do, brothers?
Kind of shocking what happened to Hall in there.
Maybe the Rainbow Express wasn't looking so bad. By the time Bruce's intro is over, it's time for our next entrant, the school board member himself, Rick Steiner, still sporting his WCW shirt with the logo featured prominently on the front, a tee he wouldn't give up even 5 years later. The dog-faced gremlin comes in with some decapitation Steiner lines to everybody, even his kind of brother Del Rios. The punching bag of the match Slash is finally put out of his misery with an elimination at the hands of Steiner, and after a signature Braun Breaker catchplex, so too is Prince Justice, who really could have used some sort of brotherhood to watch his back. Entering at either lucky or unlucky number 13 is Malice.
That's the wall up there, brother.
Malice saw Steiner's House of Fire run and one-ups it with chokeslams to damn near everyone in the ring upon entry, and immediately tosses K-Krush, Bruce, Del Rios, and Conan, though K-Dog looked like he could have stood up from the apron if he really wanted to. Steiner also gets bridged out by Malice, and as one WCW guy wearing his red and black gear is gone, in comes another with Scott Hall trying to win that elusive first world championship of his career. Back in the ring, Apollo has another awkward moment of waiting so long to jump off the top rope while Hall cleans house that he eventually just kinda jumps down to team up with Scott, which he wouldn't bat an eye at with their accidentally matching gear. Some Scott-tuned music parks Malice momentarily for Hall to connect with the move formerly known as the Outsider's Edge on his former NWO 2000 mate. Unofficially out next is Toby Keith, looking for revenge on Jeff Jarrett that wins this episode's Road Warrior Pop Award for biggest crowd reaction of the night.
It's Toby Keith! Has Jarrett up? What is this? Toby Keith!
Jarrett finds himself in his own country song when he gets dumped, but in this case it was out of the match by Scott and Keith before Toby sternly escorts Jeff.
To the back!
In so fast I couldn't screen cap his entrance, it's Wildcat Chris Harris, dismaying Del Rios by wrestling as himself instead of Sting, though he eventually came around to breaking the paint back out. Spooky levels shoot through the roof with our next two entrants, the incredibly named Vampire Warrior, the man formerly known as Gangrel in the WWF, and Danger 7 Storm, the man formerly known as Crowbar in WCW. Scott Hall does a funny bit that probably wasn't a bit at all of just sitting on the top turnbuckle and watching everyone else go to work, but luckily our 18th entrant is an old school man who will teach that young whippersnapper the value of a hard day's work, the king of old school and only former NWA champion in the match, Steve Corino. A ringside photog forgets you don't stand in front of the other cameras at a TV show, while on the opposite end we see Mitchell save his last remaining hope Malice from his long legs touching the floor. Next in is the first ballot UFC Hall of Famer Ken Shamrock, using his legs for kicks to Corino and Crowbar, but in an awesome spot he attempts a jumping knee strike at Malice, who watches Ken just bounce off his chest before charging a second time, only to get caught and dropped to the mat. Scott Hall gets a vote of confidence over the plane ride from hell from the crowd ahead of our last and least likely entrant to win the title arriving, Brian Christopher. Grand Mastifer wastes no time going 2001 Kane, or more appropriately 2002 Malice on the field, sending Chris Harris out, goading Crowbar over, dumping Gangrel to the floor, and then clotheslining Carino for his 4th rapid-fire elimination. Malice reminds Brian, who's boss, with a choke slam, and in a funny bit, everyone teases going after Malice, only for Shamrock to kick Brian in the back and throw him out to give us our final 4 of the match. The Apollo Union gets us down to 3 when Malice backbodies Apollo out, and he completes the set with another backbody to take Scott Hall hiking out of the running. We're down to our final 2 in a one-on-one match for the NWA World's title, which brings us Ricky Steamboat as referee, this pair of Francine signs in the crowd, and for some reason a tight shot of Steamboat rubbing his nose. Malice dares Shamrock to make the first move, and it gets his facial features booted right off, followed by a sidewalk slam, but Shamrock has enough left inside of him to kick out at 2. Someone accidentally clicks the saturation button on the camera, and Malice tries to finish off Ken with a chokeslam, but Shamrock catches him in midair to apply a cross arm breaker on the big man for almost a full minute, but being a UFC Hall of Famer means nothing to Malice, who inches his way to a rope break. Shamrock ducks a high clothesline and then catches a low boot, converting it into another submission hold, this time the ankle lock that Jeff Jarrett perfected.
Ken Shamrock made it famous, but I perfected it. Come here, kid. I could break this ankle in 2 if I had to. Come here. Get over here. Quit moving.
Malice reaches the ropes again, but Shamrock simply unreaches them for him by dragging him away before he clutches the bottom rope as James Mitchell demands the hold be broken. Despite Steamboat reaching a count of 6 here, not to be confused with giving him a Fonzie thumbs up, Shamrock isn't DQ'd but faces Cosmic Justice running into another boot and getting goozled for another chokeslam attempt. Before Malice can try it though, Shamrock catches him with a belly-to-back suplex, and with Malice far away from the ropes now, Shamrock secures the victory and his first World Championship in Wrestling, the NWA World's Heavyweight title. The celebratory pyro shoots off through the arena and Shamrock holds the prestigious 10 pounds of gold high, so let's go to Ed Ferrara to sum up this historic accomplishment in this show's Art Donovan Award winner for worst commentary of the night.
How much does this guy weigh? There's $600 there, Art. Huh? 600 pounds plus. Oh!
It's like running in the Special Olympics. You want to get in a fight with him? Even if you win, you got to be retarded to do it. At a moment like this, that's the reference that you're going to make.
The name of the parent company is J Sports, not K Sports, so Jeff Jarrett returns for more mic time to run down the concept of a battle royal for a world title, because if there's one thing Jeff Jarrett won't stand for, it's a world championship being decided in a wonky gimmick match. Bullet Bob Armstrong then provokes the future Bullet Club member and gets shoved ass over tea kettle onto the announce table. Cut from that to this dramatic overhead shot revealing Toby Keith back out with Jackie Fargo, who uses his stroke to book Jeff Jarrett in a match on episode 2 against Scott Hall, leading to a brawl in the aisleways as we fade to black on episode 1 of the NWA-TNA. I hope you enjoyed this episode of WrestleReward. Follow me on Twitter at Justin_S of OK, and remember to like, subscribe, comment, tweet, email, Instagram, ProBoards, WhatsApp, AOL Instant Message, and everything else this video. See you next time.
Hey, yo.
Oh yeah! That's familiar. Flashbacks.
There's that toothpick.